Hello, my name is Dr. Johanna Kohler and I am the manager of the Shark Research and Conservation Program at the Department of Environment. This is the recording of the Shark Deterrent Workshop from the Department of Environment that was held on Tuesday, the 24th of March 2026. Before we start, please press pause and scan the QR code with your phone to fill out the attendance register. This is so we can get in touch with you later to share results, or if you want to participate in the study that we are going to outline in the slides now. This is why we are all here today. The star of today is the Repellix. This shark deterrent initiative has evolved over time and is part of a bigger project. I'd like to take this opportunity to tell you how we got here where we are today. As you all know, the Department of Environment is responsible to protect and promote sustainable interactions with our beautiful environment in Cayman. At the DoE, the Shark Research informs policies and outreach, and vice versa, the feedback from the public and the policies guide the direction of our shark research. Let's review some of the basics. It will help you understand where the new project ties into what we already know. As of right now, there are 18 shark species recorded in Cayman waters. Some are resident, some occur seasonally, some on the upper coastal shelf, and others in the deep sea. Our research over more than 15 years revealed that we have 6 species that occur in our coastal waters: the blacktip, Caribbean reef, hammerhead, lemon, nurse, and tiger shark. The Caribbean reef and nurse shark are by far the most abundant species in Cayman. Offshore, there are the oceanic whitetip and the silky shark, and even whale sharks on occasion. Some people have also encountered mako sharks, but those are also very rare. In our deep waters, we have recorded 8 deepwater sharks so far. The blurred lantern shark and the rough-skinned dogfish are our new discoveries that we made in the past 4 years. Previous research has informed our existing policies. Cayman is a pioneer when it comes to marine protection. Cayman was one of the first countries to establish marine protected areas in 1986. We also have various species protection or fishing gear restrictions, as well as catch limits. Sharks are protected because of the ecological and socio-economic benefits that they provide to our islands. In Cayman, it is illegal to harm, harass, or kill any shark in our waters. Globally, there are over 500 shark species known today, and they occur in every ocean from the tropics to the Arctic. Some sharks are endemic to certain areas, which makes them more vulnerable to threats. The Caribbean reef shark is endemic to the Caribbean Sea. This means it is only found in Cayman and the wider Caribbean, but nowhere else in the world. This species is classified as vulnerable to extinction because there were major declines in the region. Its protection in Cayman aims to prevent further decline because in some locations the Caribbean reef shark is already locally extinct. Sharks are protected because of the benefits that sharks provide to our islands. Let's talk about the ecological role first. This is a simplified food web. You have the primary producers at the bottom and the top predators on top, and in between the herbivores and the carnivores. This is how it should look like when there is a healthy balance in the marine ecosystem, so on the reef. The shark's job is it to eat the sick and injured, and to keep the population of the lower levels at healthy numbers. Now, what happens when sharks are not there? Places where sharks are overfished are the perfect example what can happen when we remove sharks from an ecosystem. Fewer or no sharks mean that the carnivores will increase in numbers. I know, that sounds good at first, but let's think about what do they eat? Carnivores eat herbivores. This means the herbivores will decrease in numbers because they won't be able to reproduce as fast as they are getting eaten by all the carnivores. And what do the herbivores eat? That's our parrotfish and our chub. Well, their job is it to eat the algae of the reef so that our beautiful corals can thrive. When there are not enough parrotfish, the algae can overgrow and smother the coral. This means that the overall reef environment is less healthy. Corals will die, there are more diseases, the sick and injured won't get eaten, and the overall ecosystem services that the coral reef provides will decrease. This means, most importantly, the fish that we want to eat. Sharks also generate income for our people. Sharks are usually the highlight of each dive, and divers do travel around the world to see them. In 2009, the DOE's survey estimated the value of sharks through tourism between 46 and 62 million US dollars per year. Mind you, that was done almost 20 years ago, so you can imagine that value is probably different today. It is also illegal to feed local sharks because in Cayman we want them to remain wild animals. It is important that wild animals do not learn to receive handouts from people. A wild animal will not approach humans, but a shark that has associated humans with food will approach a person snorkeling, swimming, or diving because it has learned to expect to receive food. In Cayman, we want to naturally coexist with nature by creating an environment where sharks are protected and remain wild. For successful long-term shark conservation, sharks need many years of protection. We are talking decades for changes to become evident. In Cayman, sharks are protected since 2015. In the first few years, there was no major change. It takes some time for human behavior to change, and sharks also take a long time to increase in numbers because they mature late, have long pregnancies with only small litter sizes. Now that we passed the 10-year mark, we do see early signs of an increase in numbers of sharks. Divers report more frequent shark encounters. Yay! That's what we want to see. Fishermen also report more frequent shark encounters. Obviously, that's not what we want to see. That increase in shark numbers was a hoped-for result, but now we have to make sure we can peacefully coexist in order to ensure continued protection. This shows the trend reported by divers from our citizen science program, the Shark Logger Network. This is a sign that our current protection measures are working. And yes, fishermen also report more shark encounters. Here we have two great examples of successful releases. The increase of shark encounters between fishermen and sharks is also confirmed by the reports from divers observing the signs of the impact on individual sharks, which is obviously concerning. You see on the top left corner a shark with a slitter of the second dorsal fin. On the right corner, a shark with a gaff in its mouth. And the bottom two, they have fishing line, and the other one has a really large hook sticking out on the side of the head. Anglers are really on the front lines when it comes to shark protection. The good news is DOE's outreach has had an impact in our community. People have changed their behavior. Sharks are not targeted anymore, most of them, and if accidentally caught, people do make an effort to release them as unharmed as possible. This change in behavior is also reflected in the data. Overall numbers of dead sharks decreased over time. This is a good thing. But if we want to improve the protection, we gotta dig a little deeper. Looking at reports of dead sharks, most of the sharks in the past were deliberately killed. This is not the cause of death for most of the cases anymore, but the majority of deaths occur in relation to fishing activities, which means fishing activities remain the major threat to sharks in Cayman, even though sharks are not targeted anymore. The issue is that fishing is never 100% selective, so there's always the possibility of a shark getting hooked. Some don't survive the capture, and those that do might die post-release because of the injuries or as a response to stress endured during the capture and the release process. Last year, most of the deaths involved the early life stages. The majority of sharks were juvenile pups about 1 to 3 years old. The reported deaths occurred mostly in the summer months from May to October. Now, this seems to correlate with the pupping season that we believe is from May to September based on the data that we have. However, we don't really know the full life cycle of sharks in Cayman yet. Over the last few years, from a conservation perspective, it really boils down to two predominant concerns. Concern one is the frequent reports of unwanted shark encounters from fishermen and the evidence from the divers, most likely sharks that are part of the breeding population, including pregnant females. Concern two is the number of dead sharks reported every year, many of which are very young sharks. Knowing this, if you were in the position to make decisions right now, what would you do to ensure effective shark conservation? We have identified that in order to address these concerns, we need to do the following. 1. Close the knowledge gap in the life cycle of sharks in Cayman. What we do know from studies elsewhere is this. Sharks reproduce through internal fertilization. The males provide the sperm and the females provide the egg cell, and some species have a uterus. During the mating event, the sperm gets transferred from the male to the female through claspers into her cloacae. All sharks reproduce via internal fertilization, but not all species develop the babies in the same way. In sharks, there are three main reproductive strategies. Oviparity is where the shark mom is laying eggs. We don't really have those species in Cayman. They occur more in temperate water, and it's also some skates and rays. Ovoviviparity, in that case, the eggs stay in the mother, so there's a little bit more protection. But each baby is connected to an egg yolk, almost like a chicken egg, and they receive the nutrition from the egg yolk. There's no additional nutrition provided by the mother. Once the babies are developed, she gives birth to live young. This is the case in Cayman for species such as the nurse shark, tiger shark, and great hammerhead. The last one is placental viviparity. In this case, the mom has a uterus, almost like in humans, and there is a placenta. And each embryo is connected to the placenta with an umbilical cord. And the embryos receive nutrition from the mother via the placenta through the umbilical cord. Once the babies are developed, she gives birth to live young, and this is the case in Caribbean reef, lemon, scalloped hammerhead, and blacktip sharks in Cayman. Regardless of the way the babies are produced, as soon as they get born, the baby sharks are on their own. There is no parental care provided by the mother or the father. They have to figure out how to hunt and hide from bigger predators. In nature, the smaller you are, the more vulnerable you are, because there's bigger predators out there in size that will eat you. So there's barracudas or bigger sharks that will eat baby sharks. So you can imagine the first 3 years are really hard for baby sharks. Now, in Cayman, we need to figure out where the females go during their gestation and where they give birth, what the litter sizes are, and the reproductive cycle. So how many times per year or per 2 years, 3 years, the sharks can give birth. The second issue is there is no effective tool for fishermen to avoid catching sharks. Sharks are predators and naturally attracted to struggling fish that are hooked on a line. In nature, sharks eat the sick and injured fish to keep the overall fish population healthy. The struggling fish and the fish blood send out signals that tells the shark it is injured and weak or sick and it's got to be eaten. However, being caught is not good for the individual. So the aim is to reduce the encounters with fishermen for the shark's sake, but also for the fisherman's catch. With this in mind, we secured funding from the UK government through Darwin Plus. Over the next 3 years, the project aim is to safeguard the most vulnerable life stages in sharks, such as the newborns and the pregnant females. This requires some specific expertise, and we are happy to collaborate with the Big Fish Lab at Oregon State University, who will support us in this mission. Now, the first step will be data collection. In terms of research, we will catch sharks and get blood samples for sex hormone analysis, which will give us the reproductive cycles. We will then use a waterproof ultrasound to scan the females and confirm pregnancies. Here you see a tiger shark baby and many more in there. You see the mouth gaping and a few tails sticking out. This also gives us the ability to confirm the litter sizes, so we can count how many embryos are in the uterus. If the shark is pregnant, she will get a birth alert tag. This is a tag specifically designed for shark species. It gets inserted into the uterus with the babies and stays dormant in there. Once she gives birth, the tag comes out with the babies, floats to the surface, and sends via the antennae the exact date, time, and location of the pupping area. The pregnant females, but also a number of mature males, will get tagged with a pop-off archival tag. This tag collects data such as depth, temperature, and geolocation. And with this, we can confirm the habitat use during gestation and mating. We will involve our community in this research. The divers can be part of it through our citizen science program. We have been training all participants over the last few weeks to identify signs of reproductive activities and nursery areas. And with the fishing community, we will trial the Shark Deterrent device. This new device is called Repellix, and it works via an electromagnetic field that is generated around your fish. And this way, it deters sharks from predating on your catch, so it reduces shark depredation on target fish, but also reduces shark bycatch and reduces loss of tackle to sharks. This was developed in Australia recently and shown really promising results elsewhere. Thanks to the 33 volunteers that responded positively to the survey in last September, this gave us the backing from the community to secure the budget in the funding from the UK for this part of the study. Now that we secured the funding, the next step was to buy a small number of these Repellix deep drops for a pilot study. Once we have established whether the device is working or not, hopefully it will work, we will run out a bigger study among more of the fishing community, whoever wants to be involved, to trial the long-term effects of this device. We'll go more into this now. Then the second step of the project will be analysis of the results, and hopefully at the end we will have an effective tool for avoiding shark encounters when you fish. And the last step will be a community-led development of a mitigation response to hopefully know where the newborns are breeding and pupping, but also a tool option for the fishing community to avoid these shark depredations on their catch and essentially increase the catch when they go out fishing. Now, the Repellix. Like I said, it's an electromagnetic shark deterrent device with a really strong electric field. And it is meant for various fishing types except for trolling because it cannot withstand a really strong current. At least this device can't. We're hoping that in the future there will be new advances in the technology and it will also be one available for trolling.
Hey guys, I'm Dave from Repellix. This is just a quick information video on how you're going to save your fish from those sharks. First point is, this device arrives in a packaging tube. It's really important after you've used this that it's rinsed fresh in fresh water and you store it in this tube. It has to stay straight all the time. Point number 2 is make sure you rig this correctly. The instructions are really clear in the packaging, but make sure you use braid down to your leader and then 200-pound leader, at least 2 meters to your bottom swivel. The device will clip onto your bottom swivel like that, and then once you've clipped it to there, you can run 50 to 60-pound rig, just a normal Paternoster rig as standard with a lead swivel. Point number 3 is this floats up above your rig, and so it must stay up there so the fish will still go near your bait. Once you hook up your fish, it will drop down and wrap around your fish. It will protect it all the way to the surface. But if you stop winding, even for 1 second, this field will disappear and the sharks will come in. So make sure you don't stop winding unless you're using electric reels, but the tension must be on all the time. Point 4 is, this is water activated. So once it comes up, turn it upside down, the water will run out of the charge port and the device will turn off. But just to be safe, always just handle it by the black tube. If you need any more information, just get in touch with us at repellix.com.
Now, as he said, it's floating, the end. So it's not a sinker, it's not additional weight, but it is also reducing the chance that it gets caught at the bottom when you are doing your deep drops. When the line gets pulled in, the second electrode moves down and the electromagnetic field will be around your tackle and essentially your fish. The device uses the shark's physiology to its advantage. So let's get into that. Sharks are fish, but in many ways they are different to a bony fish. First of all, sharks don't have a bony skeleton. They have cartilaginous skeleton. So they only have a spine and no ribs, and the fins also have feathers that are made out of cartilage. This is important to know because when you do handle a shark, it's important to not take it out of the water because this way there's nothing to support the shark's inner organs and it could get squished by its own weight and injure the internal organs when it's taken out of the water. They also have a very large liver. Bony fish, they have a swim bladder. This is how they control their buoyancy. And the liver, together with the large upper lobe of the caudal fin and the pec fins, provide the sharks with uplift, so it has to keep swimming in order to maintain buoyancy in the water column. Sharks also have no scales, they have dermal denticles, they reduce drag and have evolved from, back in the day, teeth that are now armoring their skin. When you stroke a shark from the front to the back, it's very streamlined, so it reduces the drag, it needs less energy to swim through the water. But if you stroke it from the tail end to the front end, it's very rough, almost like sandpaper. They also have exposed gills. Bony fish, they have a gill cover. Sharks don't have that, so they are very vulnerable around that area because obviously that's their lungs and they need the gills functional in order to uptake the oxygen from the water. Then there's two senses that sharks have. One every fish has, it's the lateral line. The lateral line runs alongside the body and it's essentially a pressure sensor. They pick up minute currents, changes in pressure in the water. For example, when a struggling fish sends out these pressure waves, that's what a predator will pick up. And that is why a shark is attracted to your struggling fish on the line, because they can feel that fish struggling and fighting from far away with their lateral line. And this is what gets them drawn to your boat or your line, your catch. You might have seen those videos online where people are splashing with fins on top of the water and generating waves. And the sharks come closer, and then when they stop with the waves and generating that pressure wave, the sharks will turn away again. And this is exactly what they are using, the lateral line. The ampulla of Lorenzini is unique to sharks. It's the electroreception. So these are tiny, minute pores distributed all over their body. They're actually smaller than the blue dots here visualized. I just wanted to give an indication of what it might look like. They are most densely located around the snout, and as you can see, there are really tiny dots all over the snout, and this is what they are using to pick up electromagnetic currents. Every living organism sends out electromagnetic currents, for example us with our heartbeat alone, and the shark uses their ampulla of Lorenzini, that sense, in the last 1 to 3 meters when approaching a prey. You might have seen the stingrays at Stingray City hovering over the sand and going back and forth, almost like a metal detector, trying to figure out what is hidden in the sand. And this is what they are using. They're using the ampulla of Lorenzini to detect the hidden prey like a mussel, a crab, or any other critter in the sand. And obviously sharks and rays are related, so they both have that special sense. Now, when the repellix produces this strong electromagnetic field, the shark, the ampulla of Lorenzini, is getting overstimulated, and it's almost like a punch in the face for the shark, and they turn away. This is why the device claims that it does not affect your catch, but only sharks, because fish, bony fish, they don't have this special extra sense. This is what it looks like underwater. Just keep in mind, the sharks are still getting very close to your catch, because remember that electroreception only works in the last 1 to 3 meters, but they will turn away once they are encountering that electromagnetic field.
The Repellix Shark Deterrent system is so easy to use, just clip it on and send it down. Its above-rig design will float up and not get hooked in the coral, and its strong electromagnetic field will stop those sharks from stealing your fish. It really works.
Now, I want to go with you through a case study that has tested this device. If you want to, you can read it yourself in more detail. It is open access, which means you can read and download it for free. It's 13 pages, but if you don't want to, you don't have to, because I read it for you. The study took place at the Cocos Islands by Australian fisheries scientists. In the past 10 years, scientists in Australia have focused to assess the impact of shark depredation on Australian fisheries. The Cocos Islands are an Australian overseas territory, and the waters around the islands are protected by marine parks. I chose this study to show you because, 1, it is the latest research. The data was collected in 2024 and it just got published earlier this year, so it can't get more fresh than that. But also because the islands are similar to Cayman in such that they are very remote with high costs of living because most has to be imported. While their population is smaller than ours in Cayman, on the Cocos Islands there are about 600 residents, but many fish for living and food supply, and they also have a large fishing tourism sector, which is key for their local economy. Another similarity is that fishing charters target mostly demersal fish, pelagic and bonefish, even though in Cayman we catch Caribbean species and obviously not those into Pacific ones. And there are 8 shark species recorded in Cocos Islands, but 2 are most common. The blacktip reef shark, not to be mistaken with the blacktip shark that we have in Cayman, and the grey reef shark. In Cayman, we have many more sharks in total, but on our coastal shelf and when we look at the encounters with fishermen, we are also dealing with about mainly 3, perhaps up to 6 species that usually are the ones mainly predating on your catch. I would say Caribbean reef, silky, oceanic whitetip, tiger, and hammerhead, perhaps now and then a blacktip shark, are the culprit. Luckily, we don't have these high rates of shark encounters with anglers in Cayman. At the Cocos Islands, fishermen reported 50% of catch lost to sharks at every trip, and 80% in some deepwater areas. The overall concern is similar though. They also report a noticeable increase in shark depredations recently, and that this impacts the fishing experience, but also the amount of money lost. Remember, their situation is similar to ours, that they are also importing most of their stuff, and the loss of deepwater tackle per day can cost around $70 to $100 per trip. At the Cocos Islands, the fishing community actually were the ones asking for the testing of the Arplex, so they reached out to the scientists. And this is exactly what the scientists did, together with the fishermen. This was the fishing setup. It is as advised by Repellex. They collected the data from February to March in 2024 over 11 fishing days with 6 captains/boats in 50 to 200 meters offshore at the drop-off, close to the drop-off, and they used rod and reel. The target species were demersal fish species including ruby, flame-tailed snapper, and deepwater rodcod. This is the setup when there is no catch on the line. As you can see, the second electrode of the Repellex is floating away from the bait. And then when there is a fish on the line, the electrode moves down and is protecting your fish. The rest of the description is just outlining the suggested setup by Repellex using 200-pound mono above and a little bit less below, and having the hook in the middle of the Repellex. They used 2 lines with baited hooks on each boat, and they decided on 2 treatments in the experiment. One treatment had the Repellex on, and the other had no Repellex. So at the beginning they used the Repellex on but off as the control, but they noticed that they lost too many of the devices to the sharks, and this was getting a little bit costly, so they decided to just leave the Repellix off as the control. And which treatment was first was decided randomly via coin flip. And one set would be 3 catches of fish per treatment. So they would flip the coin, and depending on which treatment was first, let's say it was the Repellix on, they would have per boat 2 lines in with the Repellix on, and would wait for 3 catch events, meaning that a fish was on either one of the lines. And then after 3 catches, they would take the Repellix off and fish again until they had 3 catches. And then this would be one experimental set, so 6 catches in total. Per catch event, they would note down whether they landed the fish intact, no scratches and nothing, whether it was partially bitten off, or whether they had complete loss of the entire tackle, fish, or actually a shark being hooked. The effort was 1 to 3 vessels with each 2 fishing lines. Once a set was complete, so a total of 6 catch events, the vessel moved on to a different location to ensure new sharks were encountered, but also reduce the chance of habituation occurring. The fishing locations were picked from a set of pre-agreed locations based on local fishing knowledge of coming fishing depth and known levels of catch and depredation. The areas known to have high depredation rates were prioritized to test the Repellix under the most challenging conditions possible and to ensure that sharks were present and likely to interact with the fishing gear. When possible, they also used cameras, GoPro or Waterwolf to inform the species of sharks present. Okay, we had 11 fishing days, 262 catch events, but only 148 catch events had all 6 catch events, so those were used for the analysis to be able to compare the treatments. And this is the results. The number of catch events that had predations with the Repellix off was 63. That was 85% of total catch events. With the Repellix on, they only had 19 catch events with predations, and that was 26%. The catch events that were landed was 11, so they had 11 fish with the Repellix off, that's about 15%, and 55 fish landed with the Repellix on, which was about 74%. They caught 2 Caribbean reef sharks with the Repellix off and none when the Repellix was on. With the cameras, they observed gray reef sharks as one of the main shark species that were responsible for depredations. After that, it was the blacktip reef shark, oceanic whitetip, and whitetip reef shark. With those results, you can create a model that can predict the probability of depredation depending on whether the Repellix is on or off. And here you see the Repellix reduces the probability of losing the catch to sharks by 63%. They also found a large amount of variation between skippers across the control and the Repellix on treatments. This means that a fisherman that is very good in catching fish might have also have a lot of depredation, which, to be honest, makes sense. The more fish you catch, the more likely it is that a shark takes it. But they also found, for example, that a fisherman that isn't so successful in catching fish might have also have a lot of shark depredation. So it does depend on the individual person whether you do get a lot of shark depredation or not. Another thing they pointed out was the average catch event were higher without the Repellix than with the Repellix. Catch per unit effort means how many fish were caught in a specific period of time. and they counted 7.5 catch events per vessel per hour without the Repellix on, and 4.3 catch events per vessel per hour with the Repellix on. So it decreased when the Repellix was on the line. Here are the key takeaways from the study. The device is highly effective in reducing shock depredation by 63%. It is not 100% effective, but I would say it is still meaningful for anglers. There was a short-term effectiveness in the Cayman Islands, but they don't really know the long-term effects because they only tested it for 11 days in a row. They also found that the Repellix on reduced loss of fishing gear and bait, so essentially you are saving money by not losing your tackle. And it also improved the shark health, because obviously we are reducing the encounters and the potential impacts of these encounters on the health and the fitness of the individual sharks. There were several practical challenges that the paper highlighted. One is lower catch rates and longer time to first catch with the Repellix on. That could be because it is likely due to the visual effect of the device on the line deterring the fish from the bait, or the extra weight on the line reducing the ability of the fisherman to feel the fish biting the bait. However, in reality, the substantially lower depredation rates when using the Repellix is going to benefit in more fish being landed in the long term. The lower catch rates were decreased by 43%, but the loss of fish to sharks was reduced by 43%. So overall, when you use the Repellix, you are still getting more fish landed. The study also highlighted a few concerns or potential improvements. The one is that potentially the sharks could get habituated to the electromagnetic field if you are using it longer than just the 11 days. They also highlighted there's a high voltage, so there is a risk of a mild electric shock when using the device. The battery life is relatively short. It's 1.5 to 2 hours, so you probably will need either multiple devices or really strong battery charger on board. And they highlighted that it does need ongoing maintenance, regular cleaning with fresh water after each use, and now and then cleaning with vinegar against corrosion. Captains and skippers also influence the catch. As I mentioned earlier, the captains that had higher numbers of catch events had also a higher probability of depredation, but also vice versa, and this likely was depending on the fishing method and the behavior of the fishermen. They also noted that the length of the vessel had no effect on the depredation, and the engine type had also no effect. They also mentioned that location, depth, atmospheric pressure, reel type, they use standard versus electric reel, also had no effect. But I want to point out that in Cayman, we obviously are using a lot bigger vessels than the 19 to 19 foot used in this study, and we are also using a lot of different engine numbers, I would say, inboard, outboard, and numbers of engine on the boat as the one single outboard engine used in this study. The study also highlighted that other studies showed that the fight time had a significant effect. The reel type could have an effect because the electric reel is faster and more consistent when you pull it up, and that creates a better electric field around a fish. So they suggested for other studies in the future to also record the fight time because they haven't done that in this study. They also mentioned that the fishermen in the Cayman Islands like to also fish for pelagic fish, and they suggested to the manufacturer a modification of the Repellix to also be able to test for these types of fishing. Now, what does this all mean for us in Cayman? There are a few things that we need to keep in mind if we want to use the device. One is the setup. They suggest a leader line should be about 200-pound mono, 2 to 3 meters above the rig. The rig with the hooks should be 50 to 60 pound mono, and the repellix gets attached above the hook. There is a clip to be attached to the main swivel, and then in the middle of the repellix there should be the hook located. They also suggest specific types of knots to secure the device and the tackle. The device can run up to 2 hours before it has to be recharged, and charging time is quite long. So on the boat you want to have a fully charged device or multiple devices with you. The depth rating is 250 meters of the device that we bought. We did already buy the next generation. This is why we waited until March for the new generation, the deep drop repellix, to come out. The original repellix had a depth rating to 100 meters, which is about 330 foot. And as you can imagine, that doesn't give us a lot of depth freedom to fish in Cayman. So the 250 is rated, can go down to 820 foot. That is already a little bit more feasible for Cayman. Now, here are a few videos that give quite a bit of good info to help wrap your head around what can work and what we potentially need to find a solution for.
Hey guys, we're out here in Broome, Western Australia. One of the places where sharks are pretty dominant when you're out bottom bouncing and chasing mackies. You want to run a 200-pound leader or mono to a really strong FG knot or something similar. I'll just show you what that looks like. So basically you want that really strong, as that's going to protect your device, so to speak. So we run that straight through to a clip. Here's your clip. So just your standard clip-on swivel. Your 200 mono is attached to that, and then you clip your rig to that. What we then do is, here's your device. Great thing about the device here, we've got something that pulls off, which goes in your rod holder. This thing here is important. We need to make sure that that's in a nearby rod holder, because that's going to stop you getting shocked when the device comes out of the water. If there's still water on the device, it'll still be active. As soon as you bring it up, straight in there, and that disables the shock. Very important.
We've been testing the repeller today. Really good fun, great fishing, love it. Electrical current, positive, negative, flowing in a big loop. So it's actually quite a big field. Important things when you're rigging, you want to get your hook in the middle, somewhere in this sort of range. So when you've got your fish on, obviously your shark's going to come in, hit that, swim away. They're electrical receptors, they don't like that. But the importance is the rig. We don't want to lose this. Now mainline leader, anywhere between 100 to 200 pounds. We used 100, but preferably 200. Your swivel clip, you can use a 3-way if you want. You don't have to, you can use a straight swivel. These come pre-rigged with a crane swivel, ball bearing swivel on the top. So just clip it in the top or add it to your 3-way, no problem at all. When you do your dropper rig, we did 60 pound today. 50 pound or 60 pounds fine. Just nice and simple loop, single sinker, single hook. I don't like doing double trouble. We've got enough problems with sharks at the moment, but single hook, no problem at all. But you want that to break away, you don't want that to break away. So always make sure that your mainline leader is more than what your dropper rig is. Okay.
Hey guys, as promised, quick video on the Repellex shark repellent. So we're going to stock these guys because we are going to use them on our charters. So I'll give you a quick rundown on how they are. This is how they come clean out of you when you purchase them out of the box. So as a quick rundown, you have your mechanical side, which is your battery and the power side of the device. Then you have an emitting side. So this is what sends out the electromagnetic pulse, which then deters the sharks, gives them a boot. So unlike most devices, you would have seen magnetic devices and all that sort of stuff. They don't actually really emit much. this thing gives a fair boot. So you have to still be careful of it because it's like an electric fence. So by all means, when you're playing with it, it is a strong device, so you have to be careful. So it's, I'll put that one down because that's already zip tied, but we'll get one that we've got earlier. So yeah, same thing. Charging wise, very simple. USB plug-in, so it can be charged at home quickly, or it can be charged on your boat very easily. So positive in, clip it in, bang, done. Easy as that. Plug it in, power, which is all good. So fully charged, you'll get between 2 and 3 hours out of it. Best way is to just count for 2 hours and then recharge. So the last thing you want to do is have this device not working, and then there's a possibility of something eating it or having a go, because it is shiny. It is what it is. But yeah, if it's running, physically impossible to have something biting this, because it does boot. Trust me, I've been hit with this a few times. So yeah, basic rundown as well. That goes in underwater. As soon as water fills in under there, then it turns the device on. So as you're pulling it up and you've got a fish on, grab this end, not the emitting end. Give it a shake, and then you're good. And that won't zap you. So it's a pretty cool little setup. But how we run it, it'll give you, Dave and the guys have given you full instructions there on how to run it. You also have a QR code on the tube that it comes in, and it goes to the website and gives you a full rundown of how to rig it. Really suits those guys with 2 or 3 rods in the boat, just wanting to go out there, smash some reds and nanny guy and fill your freezer. So, you know, instead of catching 50 fish and losing 35 to them to sharks, you can just get your 20 fish and go home. Better for the environment. And my biggest thing with these is that I think we are going to train these sharks that some boats you just don't want to go near. So in time, I'm hoping that our vessels will ping off enough of these guys that they won't come back. So they'll see, okay, that's a cat that's making that noise. They use that propellant. People think we're silly when we think sharks are that intelligent, but yeah, they're pretty smart, those guys. So it's a cool option. So now, quick rundown on how we'll use it. So 200 pound braid, 150 to 200 pound braid, down to about a 200 pound leader. So you want your rig, your hook rig, to be sacrificial. So you run down to your real heavy leader, and then that down to a big heavy swivel or a single solid ring. So either way, it doesn't really matter. You know, with big braid, you don't need a swivel. So a solid ring or a swivel is fine. Clip that device onto the solid ring. Under that ring, you have your normal rig. So you have your dropper rig, maybe 40 centimeters off the bottom to your hook. And then from your hook to this device, this end of the device, you want to have about 50 to 60 centimeters. And what that means is when you drop your rig down, the buoyant anode, or emitter I should say, floats. So it will sit up and above, and then your bait is under that rig. What happens, you hook your fish. As you're pulling your fish up, this is only just buoyant. It will drop down just around where your fish is, and then give you a 1.5 metre field behind your fish. So that quite easily boots all the sharks that come up and follow your fish. And it's quite amusing watching some of the footage we did when we were at Shark Shoal and the guys over in WA. So the sharks will follow and they're just about to attack. They open their mouth, they hit that field, and it's like a punch in the face. Their eyes roll and they turn off, and off they go. So it definitely does work. Shark Shoal, I think we ended up with 56 fish, somewhere around that, without losing a device and losing a fish to a shark. But the key was the fact that after about 20 minutes of using these devices there, the shark's pissed off. So you're going to train those sharks eventually that it's not fun to be there. So yeah, like I said before, it'll only work underwater, so that needs to fill up. So same deal, when that comes out of the water, you need to shake it, and that'll turn it off. So something pretty cool, something we're going to have in stock in the future, and we're going to run on our boat. We'll do some videos with a videographer and get some footage of it working, and yeah, we'll see how it goes. But yeah, all the test products that we had a 100% success rate, and these are next level compared to those. So looking forward to it, looking forward to what we can do with them. And yeah, if anyone is keen on them or keen to have a look, by all means feel free to wait till we've got the study done. We'll show you how they are, how they work. I don't need to prove this to anyone because I've already proved it myself. So to me, it's 100% foolproof with it when used properly. So what we would like to do is show you guys that, and then eventually you guys might want to purchase them. And we can just sort of ease that shark deprivation that is there at the moment. So many people are just killing a lot of big numbers of fish just to get 5 to take home. Well, at least this way, you can just catch your 10 fish, hook them, bring them in, and then go home. So yeah, pretty cool device. But yeah, keep in touch and we'll have some more videos for it.
So, what are the next steps? First, we will use the 5 devices to do a pilot study, which is a small study to collect some data to get some first info and iron out problems that we might encounter. This will be followed by a long-term trial study, which will collect data on the effectiveness and long-term effects. This will tell us whether the device is effective in deterring sharks, but also whether it will work in the long term. I do ask for your patience as we go through these steps. It really is important to make sure the device actually works against sharks, but also ensure it doesn't affect your catch and safety. We don't want to rush this and advise people to use the Repellix based on wishy-washy evidence. It is expensive after all. If you want to be part of this small group pilot study, please scan the QR code if you haven't done so earlier, so we can reach out to you with more information in the future. Essentially, we will use the study done in the Cayman Islands as our guide for this initial pilot. The aim is to do about 10 to 20 fishing days, maybe more. We will see how many days we will need to get a minimum of 180 catch events. This is what we need as a minimum for the statistical analysis. If we have more time, the more catch events would obviously be better. We will use the same treatments as the study in order to make meaningful comparisons, but also compare it to the fishermen at the Cayman Islands. This will help us to find out where we in Cayman stand in comparison with other regions. As I said, if you want to help, reach out. We want to start with the deep drops, meaning the snappers, but there's also potential to try it for tuna, because I know that the sharks are mostly targeting, let's say, the tunas and the snappers when you fish. So that is the biggest problem, really. So we are looking for a small group of volunteer anglers to help us with this. And ideally we want 3 different boat sizes, a number of engines, so we can also give information in the future if that has an effect in Cayman. And we also want to use standard versus electric reels. Now, during the workshop a few days ago, we did discuss, it was a really fruitful discussion, the potential areas that we can target, because we have to figure out which locations we should focus on for this first pilot. And I think we should pick those very sharky locations so that we also can guarantee that sharks show up, but also to really test this device under high pressure environments. The area suggested so far, the first one was 12 Mile Southwest Corner and 12 Mile Fad. Then we had the north side, the east end banks, northwest point, between the Fad and the coast, so not the Fad and not near coast, it was more between those two. Southwest Fad and St. Petros. If you have any other suggestions, please reach out to us so we can include it in that pilot study. The last thing we discussed at this stage were the potential problems and challenges that people might see now at this stage. From what I can see, there are some challenges and opportunities. Here are some that came to mind. One is the electric charge, and there's a potential risk to people. But I think the people that have used them before us made actually some really good suggestions to provide precautions that we can use on the boat, such as shaking it out before touching it so to switch it off, or putting it into the rod holder device coming with the Repellex. The depth limit is one problem that is unique to Cayman, or maybe not unique, but is definitely challenging in our environment because we are having so much deep water around us. However, I did talk to the manufacturer, and they told us that we can slide down the device when we pull up the fish into the 800 feet range. We can slide down the device to meet the fish and then protect it on the last 800 meters up. This is the same for tuna. I know tuna gets caught via jigging around here, and you do not want something heavy on the hook and something shiny silvery like the device, so the tuna can, not see your hook and actually bites the hook. And in that case, you would not have the device on while you fish for tuna, but only when you catch the tuna and you reel it in, you slide again the device down to meet your tuna and protect it on the way up. The battery life is potentially an obstacle to overcome. I mean, yes, there are multiple devices that you can use. You can also just use it when there is a shark around. So when you've noticed there is a shark, you start using the device. If you have a day where you don't encounter a shark, then just don't use the device. It is also of note that the 2 hours battery life is for continuously being on. But I know that when you fish, sometimes the line is also quite a bit of time out of the water. So in that case, the device is obviously off. So potentially the 2 hours of purely electric magnetic field can actually maybe last a 6-hour fishing day if you are using it like in half-an-hour increments. And the last two things are pretty much the same when it comes to the solution. They mentioned, the other fishermen and the scientists mentioned, that there's a potential impact to your fishing experience and that you might likely not feel the fish when it's getting hooked right away. So that's why it sometimes took a little longer before the first catch. But I would say, again, only use the device if needed. And I would imagine that there might be a learning curve. So yes, at the beginning, you might catch less fish for a few days until you figured out how it feels with the device on when a fish getting hooked. And I'm pretty sure that is something that humans are very able to get adapted to. And the last two are sharks get habituated. That has been mentioned in the paper and by other fishermen before. There is this potential or fear. It can be negative, but it can also be positive. For example, sharks could learn to avoid the boats or the areas, meaning they are getting habituated to learning that this boat is associated with this electromagnetic field, with that punch in the face. Whereas a negative outcome would be the sharks are getting habituated to the electromagnetic field and are learning to break through it and still get your fish. However, I believe sharks are really smart. They don't want to get punched in the face. This is a really strong zap because it's 200 volts. It's not just a minor electromagnetic field underwater. So I would imagine sharks are learning the same way they have learned to associate now fishing boats with free handouts, essentially, the same way they're going to learn to associate the fishing boats with these zaps and potentially areas. They might actually avoid in the future, if we are doing this long enough, they might avoid the areas because there might be on any given day one fisherman with this device out fishing, so the sharks are encountering this a lot and potentially are just gonna become less and less abundant in those predominant fishing areas. And I think the results from the study where it's shown that the shark depredation really depends on the individual person, like fishing. I think this gives us in Cayman an opportunity to come together as a community and share the knowledge between us and the tips how to avoid the sharks being hooked. Like, how does one person avoid the shark's depredation versus the other one? And we can come up with a comprehensive list that we can share with the community so everybody benefits from community knowledge. I'm happy to hear your concerns, if you have any additional ones, or if you see any other opportunities, if you see any other solutions, please reach out to us. We are happy to hear you and listen. Become part of the study. We are looking for a small group of people to help us with the effectiveness pilot study. And I am looking forward to hopefully a really positive result so that we do get eventually a really useful tool for everybody that fishes to, reel in their catch without the sharks predating on your fish. Thank you so much for listening, and get in touch.